I'm fired up because we're going to discuss powergasm between friendships. As you start to develop yourself, start achieving more and become more successful, and you start to have very tangible success, ones that are indisputable because the results clearly are favored in capitalism. So I'm not just talking about getting a master's degree or a PhD from a prestigious university. I'm talking about being seen, having some level of popularity or being known, making a lot more money. These are all very tangible, measurable, quantifiable types of successes. When you start owning your power and start having these types of results, the biggest issue that you face immediately are the people who have known you. Well, we'll start with the people who have known you because I believe that's the biggest challenge emotionally, but it will be anyone and everyone who finds out what you can do and what you have done. I can safely say that none of us here watching this channel is a white man, right? I don't think white men want to learn anything from me in general. Generally speaking, unless you're gay and you are oppressed to some level, maybe a lot of trauma. I know my audience because I understand power hierarchies and power dynamics, capitalism, patriarchy, and racism. And an average cis straight white man, no matter how much you're struggling, will probably not want to take advice from me. I already know that. Again, generally speaking. Now, where am I going with all this? Why do you have to make it about race? Why do you have to make it about gender, sexuality? Because we're talking about advantages in society and the automatic unconscious biases of people. When somebody already deems you as less than due to the combination, the intersection of your privileges and disadvantages in CPR, in capitalism, patriarchy, and racism, if someone already positions themselves as greater than, innately superior, then they get more triggered by your tangible success that they themselves don't understand how to create it, or they don't dare to, they don't have the courage to go after and make that happen. But they want it. And then so this becomes envy, but it's beyond envy because it's an envy fueled with a lot of hate and anger. I experienced this with a lot of men who have known me. So typically Asian men or Korean men who I have known, okay, primarily, and those who are either in my age group or older. I find that when a man is much, much younger, there's an age gap. Not that they wouldn't see themselves better than me or more superior, but there's definitely a power gap due to age. Let's say if I'm 10 years older than somebody. Even if that person is a man, there's already an assumption that I've been playing in capitalism much longer than that person. And based on how I speak and my body of work, is pretty clear that I didn't waste those extra 10 years accepting my oppression. Let's direct our focus back to friends, family, and people who have known you, let's say colleagues, etc. When you start to surpass them in some way and they saw you as less than because of their family background, they think it's more advantageous than yours. They see themselves as having less trauma. This is also, it can be a factor. They see themselves as racially or by gender, sexuality, based on those advantages, more superior. Then they're going to become sometimes passive aggressive, but a lot of times it's quite clear and direct. I don't even like the term passive aggressive because there's nothing passive about it when you understand how to read all the nuances in behaviors, the micro expressions. It becomes quite clear that the contempt, anger, and the disrespect really come through. And the more accomplished that person already is, let's say they're Ivy League graduate, they have a PhD, more obvious that all of this is very intentional. Nobody who can accomplish that much is that stupid. Oh, I didn't know better. You didn't know better that you can't be late to our appointment. You don't understand that time is valuable. That doesn't happen after a certain level of accomplishment. If your friend is a CEO, your friend is a leader in corporate setting, your friend knows better. If your friend has made anything happen, your friend or sibling or whoever, then they know better. You don't think they understand when they're talking shit about you? They do know better. You don't think that they understand when they're jabbing, that they have cruel intentions concealed, which they feel like it's not quite appropriate to be very open about it, but they still come through? They absolutely know. They absolutely know exactly what they're doing. This video is for you if you don't understand these signs because they're too subtle. But once you learn to see, you cannot unsee. They're not subtle at all. So number one, you want to look for any changes. If they were more engaged before and they no longer are because you've revealed something about your success. Success can be vanity metrics and can be real metrics. So vanity metrics is having like millions of followers. That's very clear for people to see. But that millions of followers doesn't always translate to money. Vanity and success will still trigger people because fame, popularity, being visible, very important in capitalism. It gives you a lot of advantages because now you open doors to opportunities once people's eyeballs are on you, provided that you become known for an expertise and not making a fool out of yourself like the Haktua girl. So let's just say that you gained a lot of visibility, and before they were really engaged and really cool, they'll reach out to you first. They will plan something with you or for you first, and then you take turns planning. Let's say it was a lot more reciprocal that way in terms of who's interested in the friendship or in the relationship that you have. If it's a family relationship, I'm just gonna call it friendship from now on. It doesn't matter. And then they suddenly start to pull away. They're too busy. They disengage, and even invitations to their birthday party or some kind of event that you were always invited to, you become a last minute guest. Like you're an afterthought. They don't call you first anymore. They don't text first anymore. These are clear signs. It's not a coincidence, or they're just busy because everybody's busy, but all of us can make time for what we value. If you can make time while you're succeeding, they can make time too. If you can make time while you're working and running a business and raising children and whatever you're doing, just a combination of everything that you do, and they're busy too, but you can make time to reach out to them, they can do it too. What will shock you is that a lot of people were very comfortable with the relationship that you have with that person when they had a power advantage over you. They love the feeling of winning, and they love the power positioning because they don't want to be at the bottom of the hierarchy all the time. They probably have to deal with that in other spaces, like at work, especially if they have always felt that they are superior to you. Then your success angers them, triggers them even more. You're supposed to be below them. They don't like that status quo shaking. Second, let's say they don't disengage, but they lean into the relationship, but they have all these expectations. They want you to pay for things, expect introductions. They assume that these efforts don't take much for you, so why don't you do it for me? That's the attitude. Again, from a place of superiority, this is an entitlement that you need to serve them. Third, they need to minimize and even demonize in some instances when it comes to your achievements to you, but more so in front of other people if you're not in the room, if they're especially cowardly. I will tell you this one time, I was having a conversation with an ex-friend. She's an ex-friend, and she lists all the people that she's known that have become really successful because I've known this person since I was a teenager. And this person lists everybody, including my own brother. And then she forgets to list me. This was after I had published multiple books and I had a ton of clients. I was making more money than her probably. And I was definitely more well known in terms of on social media. And then I said, that's very interesting. And she goes, oh yeah, and you too. But yeah, I guess you're a published author, but you're an Amazon author. Pardon me. And what have you written? Nothing. Probably have dreams too, want to achieve something similar, but these people also have all this perfectionism. So they deny the fact that they're envious and angry that you have achieved more. Usually people who are making no impact influence, this is broke language. Because when I was in sales, that person, she suggested that sales is a tacky career. It's what scammers do. Money blocks much. If you are afraid of sales, if you're afraid of money and finances, absolutely no way you can attract any abundance and wealth into your life. Instead of seeing somebody who is doing what it takes, hustling and learning capitalism, that's what I did from the very foundation of it, which is sales. And then later on is marketing and knowing how to brand yourself, etc. These are capitalism basics, by the way. You can be in corporate and you still need to know how to do all of this, because otherwise you don't know how to advocate for yourself. You don't know how to sell yourself to get a better position, to sell yourself for a promotion and more money, etc. That's why people who get triggered by sales and money pretty much have no hope in capitalism. They're just not gonna succeed in any way, regardless of what industry they're in. You can be not-for-profit, you can be in academia, you can be an artist. But if you do not understand and lean into, if you don't love, or if you don't learn to love sales, marketing, money, finances, you will fail no matter how competent you are. This is very triggering for a lot of people. So imagine if somebody has had a whole lifetime of training that going to a good school and getting this degree is going to position them superior to the majority of human beings, and that was their motivation to get there. And then they see that somebody who made a lot of mistakes, and I did in my 20s, who made a lot of serious life mistakes, like choosing the wrong partner, getting a divorce, suddenly starts tangibly, quantifiably doing better than them. Now, it doesn't mean I'm superior to that person, but a lot of times people who are running on ego like this and are envious, they only see what they don't have, and they look at that and say, but you don't deserve that because I'm better than you. The same people will oftentimes try to appeal to white supremacism, classism, in a battle that they'll lose anyway, because they are not at the top of the hierarchy, and in those elevated spaces, they have to fight really hard to be on top. So they try to curate a friendship circle where they can be the head of the friendship, their most successful one in the friendship circle, be the big fish in a small pond. But if you don't let them be the big fish because you had a huge growth spurt and now you have tangible, quantifiable, measurable successes that will put you, dare I say, even equal or better than them when we measure from hierarchical, capitalistic definitions of success, that makes them very, very mad. And then the passive aggression and all sorts of dismissal, gossiping, all of that begins. First of all, they already began before you even succeeded, because even you trying to make it is bothersome for some of these people. Even well-meaning friends who you will classify as the good girl, they don't want to be envious of you, but they will become envious because of this constant comparison that they subject themselves to. And as human beings, we are taught to compare ourselves to other people all the time. Our society is very competitive. We compete between siblings, we compete with peers. Comparison and competition have always been a part of human relationships and power dynamics. However, it can be done constructively, where you become more motivated by that person's success and find out more about how you can also achieve too. Now, being careful here not to be the type of competitive person who copies everything someone does because they want to one-up them. That's not what I'm referring to here. But a healthy competition is seeing, wow, my friend got a salary increase or got a promotion or published an article, and I would also love to become more seen and visible. And let me ask her how she did that and figure out ways to do that in my corner, in my industry. That's healthy competition. Unfortunately, most people are not emotionally regulated and mature enough to know how to do this well. So instead, it turns to anger, shame, contempt, disgruntledness, where they're no longer able to see, hey, I'm really good and she can be really good too. Instead, it becomes, hey, I'm really good, I have to be really good. I feel like she's catching up and I don't get to be the queen bee anymore. I need to oppress her. And if I can't oppress her, I can't be in this relationship, or have to find a way to leverage and use her as a resource. So people can go either way, either detach from you because it's too triggering to be around you. It reminds them that they're not at the top and they don't have a huge superior advantage over you anymore. Makes them feel good. That's the powergasm, the feeling of winning. Or they can become the type of person who keeps trying to use you and leverage you. You owe them or something like that. And then when you try to be good to them, that also pisses them off. If they see you as less than and you try to offer something, you try to be helpful, they might think that you are flaunting, that you are better than them, even though you want to be generous. One time, I bought my friend Broadway tickets. I bought Broadway tickets for everybody. It wasn't just her. And I felt like she was still showing up as a friend, but I could definitely feel she was pulling away and detaching. All she had to do was show up on time, and she didn't, and we entered late. I was not happy about that, and I was very clear. I made it known that I was not happy about it. Eventually, that friendship ended, and I could see that was the tail end of the friendship. It was a clear form of disrespect, because how does somebody who has her own accomplishment doesn't understand the need and the value of being on time? Especially having known someone like me, I value punctuality a lot, and most people who've been around me know that. There's nothing that makes me more upset than somebody wasting my time and energy, and the majority of the people who've been around me know that. It definitely felt like a deliberate form of disrespect, and I don't doubt myself even now when I think that, even though I didn't corner that person and fully verify that that's what they're trying to do. The next thing you need to be concerned about is how they will talk about you when you're not there. I have this family member who I have now got no contact with, because this person, despite their successes and all the advantages and accomplishments they had, the fact that they spent decades above me in terms of the superiority in the hierarchy due to age, gender, even education advantages. Also, when we're younger, being child-free can definitely come across as an advantage, and that person is child-free. This person took the liberty to go around to the elders of my family, who I care about a lot. They matter to me, they're my family, and have talked garbage about me and a bunch of lies, just all lies, claiming baseless nonsense, really nonsense, claiming that I am on social media selling some kind of MLM cult. So I had to tell all of the elders, my aunts, that I'm an author and these are my books. So I had to explain what I do and what I share on social media. Even though many of them felt much better, I could still see the impact, especially when it comes from a prestigious man. It really influences patriarchal women's mindset and certainly controls their views. Everybody is brainwashed with misogyny. So if you're a woman, this happens to you very frequently, and it's a guarantee that it will happen to you. It will happen to you even before what you consider tangible success. The feeling that the status quo is shaking, that fragile relationship is now shaking due to these invisible tremors. You showing up, owning your power, achieving more, that alone already creates a disturbance in these dynamics. These invisible dynamics are invisible, but they're prominent. Just because you don't see them or nobody talks about them, you don't sit down with people, you go out and you have dinner with them, or you over coffee, you don't talk about, hey, who has more power in our friendship dynamic? Who has all the power in our family? No one talks about these things. Also, with colleagues too, have your equal colleagues, let's say exact same position, same salary, but there's a power dynamic there. Somebody has an advantage, and what determines that? Everything CPR. CPR, behavior, and expectations. If you're used to playing the prey role, then you're gonna act like you're beneath that person. And if you don't establish a hierarchy in a relationship, then the other person or someone else or other people, that environment will do it for you. They will claim the top and make sure that you're at the bottom. There's no such thing as a social circle or relationship without any hierarchy. There's always a hierarchy. So if you don't set yourself up for success, then you are guaranteed to be at the bottom. People who understand power and have had enough advantages are already aware of that. People who have been in those challenging elite spaces especially have awareness of that. Sometimes they're at the bottom in those hierarchies, so they need to cope and feel better, to rejuvenate, to get back into those spaces and handle the ruthless, stressful dynamics there. So in their private circles, they'll have people that they can powergasm. That may be you or anybody who's unaware of power dynamics in social settings, in friendships, or people that you've known for a really long time. They will use you as a way to recharge their ego so they can go into those spaces and not feel so beaten down all the time. You have to read the signs much ahead of time so you don't unwittingly get used as a source of powergasm for somebody else. That already is a loss. And if somebody gets away with behaving disrespectfully towards you and you let them win, they instill self-doubt in you and you believe them. So you hum and haw and then you make mistakes. Your environment is very important. So when you start doing that, they have influence over you. And when they have influence over you and they can control your behavior, that makes them feel very satisfied. That's a huge powergasm win. Once they can do that and they continue to have that power over you because you look up to them, you see them as someone you trust, and then you keep revealing more information. Now they have a powergasm subscription. There's an invisible cord that attaches them to you, and you keep pumping their ego. They have power over you. They can control your behavior. Once you have awareness and you stop that, you try to cut the cord and you no longer want to be influenced by them. You do not look up to them. You don't idolize them anymore. You don't see them as somebody trustworthy where you overshare and reveal too much about yourself, giving them material to powergasm. Once you stop doing that and their subscription supply dries out, the power subscription dries out, then there's nothing more triggering in this world than suddenly not having supply to the ego, to suddenly no longer having power supply to feed their competitive insecurity, the feeling of superiority that helps them sustain, cope, and exist in this world. That's where you're gonna get a lot of pushback and backlash. So as you become more successful, your enemies become more complicated and sophisticated too. If you can't handle this one or two people right now, then you're not ready for something bigger. Success is about how much you can handle, how much stress, counter forces you're capable of handling. That's what determines your success. If you can't handle it, then you avoid expansion. If you can't handle it, then you hide yourself instead of being visible. You will not speak up. You will not present your ideas. Those are all coping mechanisms. You have habits to avoid stress and triggers too. When you don't have resilience, you avoid. You avoid hearing the truth. You avoid seeing the truth. You need to hold on to the illusion. There are different ways of coping and holding on to the illusion. So let's say your way is to keep yourself small and hide. Some other people's way of coping is to use you as your source of powergasm so they can feel superior and they can go out there and handle more. This is exactly the reason why so many men cheat. And a lot of men, they have their wives to build up their careers, and then they'll go and cheat on that wife, or they'll go to work and have a work wife too. These are all ways of supplying the ego and using different individuals to powergasm, to be the slave master, and somebody's sourcing the energies. Human interactions and power hierarchies in relationships, you have to look at them from an energetic sense because it's invisible. You can't see them, and it's the elephant in the room. People don't talk about them. You have to understand how to read without becoming hypervigilant or misinterpreting the signs. without misinterpreting what it actually means, because again, you see data. Data can mean a lot of things. If you see the data only from the lens of your anger, inferiority, and shame, then you misinterpret the data. You need to get yourself into a leader's mindset, and then you can be neutral and objective, and more importantly, solution oriented when you are faced with these types of symptoms in your life. Now, what does a CEO, leadership minded person do? You become solution oriented and you need to make a decision. A CEO, leadership minded individual does not let risks just be risks and keep building more risks. People are risk factors. That's why companies have HR. The HR department is there to make sure that the biggest liability for the company, humans, don't create serious risk. Humans are the most important assets, but the more important they are, they can also be the greatest liability. Just like people who are the best allies to you can also become your worst counterforces. So the question is, what do you do? Well, just more resilience. More resilience, and make sure you do not share too much. Gatekeep, because if you mention, oh, this is how much I make, and they maybe can't do that, or they don't know how to do that, or they feel like someone like you don't deserve to be doing that, then you're opening yourself up for aggression that you do not need, you can live without. Read the signs ahead of time. Be bold and courageous to handle the risk ahead of time before they become a huge problem. This is how you run your life like a business. You need to read the little signs and watch for signs of disrespect, powergasm, entitlement. Early signs, manage them. Don't just cut them off right away. See if you can work with them, but at a certain point, you need to make the decision with the goal of expansion and what is the best way you can leverage these relationships to achieve it. You need to be using word magic and embodying power in every instance nonstop. So if you want to know how to do that, then go down to the description below to check out all the ways you can work with me. Thanks for watching. It's Julia Cha. See you in my next video.